Chosen ones. Stop scrolling for just a moment, because if you've been feeling like something is shifting around you, something you can't fully explain, this message may be exactly what you need to hear. Between August 26th and August 28th, you may notice an unusual sense of pressure, clarity, emotional intensity, or sudden change. And here's what I want you to remember. The biggest sign may not be something happening outside of you. It may be something changing inside of you first. A decision you suddenly know you have to make. A person you suddenly stop chasing. A door you realize you no longer want. Or an opportunity that appears when you least expect it. And there is one mistake you absolutely do not want to make during this period: ignoring what your intuition has been trying to tell you. So stay until the end, because I'm going to reveal the 5 signs that may show you you're entering this powerful 3-day turning point. And the 5th one is the sign most people completely misunderstand. Chosen ones, there are moments in life when everything appears normal on the outside. But internally, something feels completely different. You wake up and realize your priorities have changed. You become less interested in explaining yourself. Certain conversations feel exhausting. Certain people no longer feel aligned. And things you once desperately wanted suddenly don't seem as important anymore. That doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong. Sometimes it means you are outgrowing an old version of yourself. And that is the energy we're focusing on today. The period from August 26th through August 28th is being presented here as a symbolic window, a moment to slow down, observe, and pay attention to what is changing in your life. Not because you should fear these dates, not because you should make reckless decisions, and definitely not because you should believe that every event is predetermined, but because sometimes a short period of heightened awareness can reveal something you've been avoiding for months. So ask yourself one question before we continue. What have I been feeling lately that I keep trying to ignore? Keep that answer in your mind, because by the end of this video, you may understand why it has been appearing. 1. Your intuition gets louder. The first sign is subtle. You may suddenly start knowing what you need to do without being able to explain exactly why. Maybe you've been debating whether to leave something behind. Maybe you've been wondering whether to start something new. Maybe you've been waiting for another person to give you clarity. And suddenly, you realize you already know the answer. That is the moment you need to pay attention. Because intuition rarely arrives screaming. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet sentence. I think I'm done. Or, I think it's time. Or simply, something about this doesn't feel right anymore. During August 26th through 28th, don't automatically dismiss those feelings, but don't blindly obey them either. Pause. Observe. Ask yourself, is this intuition or is this fear? There's a difference. Fear usually makes you feel rushed. Intuition often gives you clarity without demanding panic. That distinction matters, because the purpose of this period isn't to make you impulsive. It's to make you aware. And if you suddenly feel more certain about something you've been questioning for a long time, that may be your first major sign. 2. Some people start feeling different. Here's where things get interesting. Sometimes your transformation doesn't begin with a new person entering your life. It begins when an old connection starts feeling completely different. You may notice that you no longer feel the need to impress someone. You stop checking whether they approve of you. You stop explaining every decision. You stop trying to convince someone to understand your worth. And suddenly, silence feels better than proving yourself. Chosen ones, this is important. Not every relationship that changes is meant to end. Sometimes the relationship simply needs a new boundary. Maybe you need to communicate differently. Maybe you need more space. Maybe you need to stop giving more than you receive. And sometimes, yes, you may realize that a chapter has naturally reached its ending. But don't make dramatic decisions simply because of a date. Instead, observe the pattern. Who brings peace into your life? Who constantly creates confusion? Who celebrates your growth? And who only supports you when you remain the version of yourself they are comfortable with? Those questions can reveal more than any prediction ever could. And if someone suddenly disappears, becomes distant, or stops communicating during this period, don't immediately assume you've lost something valuable. Sometimes distance reveals what closeness was hiding. 3. A delayed opportunity returns. Now listen carefully, because this one can be powerful. Something you thought was over may suddenly come back into your awareness. A job opportunity, a creative idea, a conversation, a project, a message, a person, or even a dream you abandoned a long time ago. And you may think, why is this coming back now? Because sometimes life gives you a second look at something when you finally have the maturity to see it differently. But here's the warning. A returning opportunity is not automatically a good opportunity. You still have to evaluate it. Ask, does this move me forward? Does it respect my boundaries? Does it align with who I am becoming? Or am I considering it simply because I'm afraid nothing better will come? That last question is extremely important, because sometimes we mistake familiarity for destiny. Just because something returns doesn't mean you're supposed to accept it. Sometimes something returns, so you can finally say, no, I understand now why this wasn't for me. And that realization can be just as powerful as receiving the opportunity itself. The 26th, the day of observation. Think of August 26th as your observation day. Don't rush. Pay attention. What thoughts keep returning? What conversations keep happening? What emotions keep appearing? What are you suddenly craving more of? Peace, freedom, connection, purpose, security, growth. Your repeated thoughts can reveal your deeper priorities. Take a few minutes and write down 3 things. What I am leaving behind, what I am learning, what I am ready to build. Don't overthink it. Write whatever comes first. Because sometimes your first honest answer is buried underneath months of overthinking. And remember, you don't need to have your entire future figured out. You only need to recognize your next honest step. The 27th, the day of the test. Then comes August 27th. And this may feel different. Why? Because clarity is easy when everything is peaceful. The real test comes when something triggers you. Someone says something. Someone disappoints you. A plan changes. You receive unexpected news. Or something doesn't happen the way you expected. And suddenly, you have a choice. React or respond. This is where your growth becomes visible. The old version of you might immediately send the message, immediately argue, immediately assume the worst, immediately make a decision. But the new version of you pauses, breathes, observes, and asks, will this decision still make sense tomorrow? That one question can save you from so much unnecessary pain. So if something emotionally intense happens around this period, don't automatically interpret it as a cosmic sign telling you to act. Sometimes the lesson is simply, can you remain calm when life doesn't go according to plan? That is power. The 28th. The moment of clarity. And then we arrive at August 28th. This is where you may begin to see the bigger picture. Something that confused you earlier may suddenly make sense. A conversation may reveal the truth. A decision may become easier. Or you may simply feel lighter, not because everything has magically changed, but because you have changed your relationship with uncertainty. You stop demanding immediate answers. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop chasing people. You stop begging situations to become something they clearly are not. And you start saying, if it is right for me, I won't have to destroy myself trying to make it happen. That mindset shift can change everything. 4. You feel less attached to the old version of you. Here is a sign people often overlook. You may look at your past and think, why did I tolerate that? Why was I so afraid? Why did I keep going back? Why did I think I wasn't capable? Don't judge your old self. That version of you was surviving with the information they had at the time. Instead, thank that version of yourself because they got you here. But you don't have to keep carrying their fears. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to change your mind. You are allowed to want something different. You are allowed to become someone your past self wouldn't recognize. And if you feel that happening between August 26th and 28th, embrace it. Because growth often feels strange before it feels empowering. 5. You stop chasing the sign, and now we reach the most important one. The 5th sign is actually, you stop looking for signs. Think about that. When you are constantly searching for confirmation, you can become trapped in uncertainty. You keep asking, is this the sign? Is that person the sign? Should I do this? Should I wait? Is the universe telling me something? But eventually, you realize something. You don't need every external event to validate your next step. You can use your own judgment, your experience, your values, your intuition, your wisdom. And that is when the obsession with finding a sign begins to disappear. You become grounded. You become intentional. You stop forcing meaning onto everything, and you start living consciously. That is real transformation. What you should not do. August 26th to 28th. Now, chosen ones, let's talk about what you should avoid. First, don't make major decisions from panic. If you're angry, wait. If you're terrified, breathe. If you feel pressured, create space. Second, don't chase someone who has clearly chosen distance. You cannot force someone into alignment with you. Third, don't spend these 3 days comparing your life to someone else's. You don't know what happens behind their highlight reel. And fourth, don't confuse a coincidence with a command. Seeing the same number repeatedly doesn't mean you have to make a life-changing decision. A meaningful moment can inspire reflection, but your decision should still be grounded in reality. That balance is important. Spiritual awareness should make you more grounded, not less. The bigger message. So what is this 3-day period really about? Not predicting exactly what will happen. Not promising that money will suddenly appear. Not guaranteeing that a specific person will return. And not telling you that every event from August 26th to 28th is destined. The deeper message is this. You may be entering a period where you finally see clearly what you were previously too distracted, afraid, or attached to recognize. And sometimes that clarity looks like an opportunity. Sometimes it looks like an ending. Sometimes it looks like a boundary. Sometimes it looks like forgiveness. And sometimes it simply looks like peace. The biggest breakthrough may not be getting what you wanted. It may be realizing that you no longer need what you once begged for. Think about that. There is a huge difference between, I hope they choose me, and I choose myself. There is a difference between, I hope this situation changes, and I can choose how I respond to it. And there is a difference between, I need a sign, and I trust myself enough to take the next step. That is the real turning point. Your August 26th to 28th reset. So here is what I want you to do. On the evening of August 26th, give yourself 10 quiet minutes. Put your phone away. Take a few slow breaths and ask, what am I pretending not to know? Don't force an answer. Just listen. On August 27th, ask, what reaction am I ready to outgrow? Maybe it's overthinking. Maybe it's people-pleasing. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's fear of rejection. And on August 28th, ask, what would I do if I trusted myself? Then write down the first honest answer. Not the answer that sounds impressive, not the answer that makes everyone else happy. Your answer. Because sometimes the life you're waiting for begins with one honest decision. Chosen ones. If you've made it this far, I want you to remember something. You don't have to be afraid of August 26th. You don't have to obsess over August 27th. And you don't have to wait for August 28th to magically change your life. The dates are simply a reminder. You are the one who chooses what happens next. Maybe something big will happen externally. Maybe something unexpected will arrive. Maybe someone will contact you. Maybe an opportunity will appear. But perhaps the biggest event will happen quietly, inside your own mind. You may wake up and realize, I'm not going back. Not because you hate your past, but because you finally understand your future deserves your attention. And if these 3 days bring uncertainty, remember, pause before reacting. If they bring clarity, Listen. If they bring an ending, allow it. If they bring an opportunity, evaluate it carefully. And if they bring peace, don't sabotage it just because chaos feels familiar. Your next chapter doesn't need to be dramatic. It just needs to be honest. So take a deep breath. Look at where you are. Look at how far you've come. And say this to yourself. I release what no longer belongs in my future. I trust myself to recognize what is right for me. I do not chase what is meant to meet me halfway. I choose clarity over confusion. I choose peace over panic. And I am ready for the next chapter of my life. Chosen ones. August 26th through 28th may come and go like any other 3 days. But what you notice, what you release, and how you respond could stay with you much longer. So don't ignore yourself. Don't ignore your growth. And most importantly, don't ignore the quiet voice inside you that has been trying to get your attention. Because sometimes the biggest turning point doesn't arrive with thunder. Sometimes it arrives as a whisper. And this time, you might finally be ready to hear it. If this message resonated with you, comment, "I am ready," and subscribe because the next message may be exactly what you need for the chapter that comes next.